Hello, we're Bloobcast.
Hello.
Hello there.
But the important question is, why are we called to the Bloobcast?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, 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 yes.
We're going to start a new Bloobcast today on Beast Wars.
People listening who don't know what Beast Wars is, we should explain what Beast Wars is.
Yes.
Okay,
Rob, I think, is the one to do this, definitely.
Beast Wars is the iteration of Transformers that started in 1996 and ended in around 1998, 1999. One of the most notable things about the show is it was one of the early shows to use CGI, and also that as a radical change at the time for the Transformers franchise, instead of transforming into vehicles, as they normally do, the Transformers would transform into various different animals. So instead of the Autobots and Decepticons, we had the Maximals and the Predacons, who are actually the ancestors of the Autobots and Decepticons.
And what's the main plot of, just without spoilers, what happens in the first kind of few episodes that gets the ball rolling, Rob?
Okay, so basically, because at the time the show starts, the Predacons and the Maximals are at peace. However, a group of rogue Predacons led by a maniacal overlord named Megatron has got together a crew and gone rogue. And a group of Maximals led by Optimus Primal have been sent after him because they are the closest ship in range. And they end up crashing on a prehistoric planet and end up engaged in war with each other. Hence the name Beast Wars.
And let it be called Beast Wars!
However, in Canada, it wasn't called Beast Wars.
How? Wait, what? I didn't know this. Why?
In Canada at the time, there was a stipulation. Shows made for children could not have the word war in the title.
Okay.
So instead of Beast Wars, it was called Beasties.
Oh wow! Beasties sounds like a preschool kind of like little hairy monsters or something like running around. That doesn't sound like what the show is about. But
sounds like a mutated Furby or something.
Yeah. I imagine that as well, like a little furball running around.
That's so dumb. Wow.
Anyway, yeah, so that's really odd because isn't Mainframe based in Canada? Right?
Yes, they are. They're a Canadian company.
That's hilarious. Yeah, because wow, like the Beast Wars phrase is like the coolest part of the intro. It's like Beast Wars.
Oh, it's such a hardcore theme.
It's so 90s, but it's so awesome.
Yeah. It reminds me of the Buzz Lightyear advert in Toy Story 1. Where he's like flying around like the world's greatest action hero, now the world's greatest toy. It's that same energy that I love from that era. But yeah, so Beast Wars is set after the events of Transformers, which is hilarious because I've never. Yeah, it is.
Oh, okay.
But what's hilarious is that I've never actually watched Transformers, so I kind of just jumped into it like, okay, I kind of know what's happening, but that's fine because there's a bunch of robots turning into animals, and that's
quick side note for those who didn't listen to our previous episode. The reason we're doing Beast Wars now is because at the end of our previous episode, we used a dice roll to determine our next episode, and we ended up on a show that only I had seen.
Oh, I was just going to say it was good because, all right, first of all, it introduced me to Beast Wars, and I watched all the episodes. Rob organised us a bunch of episodes to watch, and we both watched them, me and Ewan.
I watched all of them. I'm sorry, James.
Wait, what? You watched?
I watched all the episodes.
Both all seasons, you mean?
That's why it took so long for me to finish them all.
Oh, crumpets. Okay, well done. And I haven't actually engaged in Transformers for years, I've never actually properly had a toy or anything like that. And because I started watching Beast Wars, I ended up watching the original show from the 80s and the movie as well. And then I ordered an Optimus Prime toy on eBay. So,
oh my god, James, you're turning into a Transformers nerd.
I mean, similarly, like when I rewatched the show for the purpose of doing this, it got me. I was doing some more research, and I got really engrossed in like Transformers lore.
Yeah,
and to the extent that I ended up, I've bought the PS3 games, the War for Cybertron games, so I can try those out because I'm really intrigued to see what those are like. But, so now I get to talk about how I discovered Beast Wars. So
go on then.
I think my first exposure to Beast Wars that I can remember was there was an advert saying it was going to be on like GMTV, which was around I think 1998.
Yeah.
But all I really knew about it at the time was it's made by the people who made Reboot, which we have already established is like pretty much my favourite show. And one of the characters was a cheetah. Why I didn't really watch it when it was on GMTV, which we'll get into later, because GMTV were really, really awful with the way they treated it. But in 2003, Channel 5 showed Beast Wars as part of a 2-hour block of CGI shows on Saturday mornings, which consisted of Dan Dare, which was the main show I was watching the block for, Excalibur, Max Steel, which is like basically Mattel's equivalent to Action Man, and then Beast Wars rounded off the block. I think I remember enjoying it because of like the fast-paced action, but I don't think I really picked up on the storylines. 5 years ago, so I think I watched Reboot. I rewatched Reboot for like the millionth time. And then I also watched the first time Shadow Raiders, which is another show made by the same company, which I hope to talk about eventually. And so then I got onto Beast Wars, and I was like, I got really into it, and I was like, why do I not pay more attention to this as a kid? This is bloody awesome.
Yeah.
Also, you mentioned that there was a cheetah character, and I just wanted to mention that the names of some of these characters are wonderful. So the cheetah character is called Cheetah.
And the rhino is called Rhinox.
And there's a tarantula called Tarantulas. It's like,
well,
I don't know.
Waspinator as well. My favourite character.
Waspinator, to be fair, is a great name. I absolutely think that's kind of brilliant. But yeah, also like Megatron is just called Megatron. It's not even like a different name for the villain. It's just the same name as the one from Transformers.
Yeah. And
Optimus Prime is now Optimus Primal.
I thought that was hilarious.
Now we get into the controversy when this show came out, because this was when the internet was in its infancy. Fans were not receptive. From what I can gather, basically because they turned into animals instead of vehicles.
Right.
Also, you got people making comments like, "Oh, Optimus Prime should be a truck, not a stupid monkey," and it spawned like a kind of like an early meme where people would say, "Truck, not monkey."
Oh wow! I forget that people care enough about it. Like the whole premise of the show is that it turn into animals. I don't understand why you would be annoyed by that.
Yeah.
All right.
Could I offer an interesting insight that I felt when I was watching the show? I thought it was interesting and different that they changed into animals and stuff like that. When I watched the first few episodes, I wondered, should this be connected to Transformers or should it be its own thing? Because it is quite different. As I progressively watched through the episodes, I understood why they connected it to Transformers, and it made sense for it to do so.
Okay, that is an interesting point, because the showrunners, I think Larry DiTillo and Bob Forwards, they had no exposure to Transformers before working on Beast Wars. What they did, they of course looked at all the message boards and everything, and they saw bits of Transformers, and this shows how good the lore of Transformers is, because they saw these bits of lore and they thought, oh, this is a really cool idea. Let's use this in the story. So they started to add more bits of the lore into their existing lore, and they added to existing well, because for instance, there's this thing called the Spark, which is a new concept for the show. It's been brought back in other iterations, and it's basically the Transformers soul.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was my first exposure, because my only Transformers content I've ever watched is the first Michael Bay film. But even I remember there being the whole big thing about the Allspark. So obviously Beast Wars had enough of an impact on Transformers that concept, like translated into the Transformers films, which from my understanding have almost no connection to the TV show beyond the characters and things like that.
But they're apparently planning to make a Beast Wars film, from what I've read.
Okay.
All right.
Well,
I think Michael Bay's not involved anymore.
No. Well, they released Bumblebee. By the way, Bumblebee is a very fun film. I recommend it. I think that's considered now a soft reboot. So all the Michael Bay films have been retconned, and now it's just Bumblebee.
And also, another note, there's the show War for Cybertron, which is on Netflix. I've not seen it, but I've heard very good things. And the third arc, that's that show, which I'm not sure when that's coming out, is called Kingdom. And they're actually including the characters from Beast Wars in it, which I am interested to see how they handle that.
It's made by Rooster Teeth, I want to say as well, who also made Red vs. Blue.
Okay.
So pretty. I need to check it out myself. We could probably do a discussion on it at some other point in the future.
So I discovered Beast Wars not through Rob first suggesting it. I actually did know about Beast Wars beforehand, and I've got a fun story about this. I can't remember how I was introduced to Starscream, but so Starscream is a character from Transformers who is notorious for basically screaming and shouting, and his whole thing is that he constantly betrays the main villain, Megatron, while also still being a villain. So his whole thing is like, Megatron, I'm going to turn on you now. And then Megatron's like, no, you can't turn on me, Starscream. And Starscream's like, oh, okay, then I guess I won't. And then that's how their dynamic would play out in each episode.
My time will come, Megatron. Never.
But then, I watched a video, I think it was like Starscream Through the Years, and one of them was in Beast Wars, where he possesses Waspinator, and the entire episode he's like trying to like basically reignite the original war between the Autobots and the Decepticons.
Bark saw the damage before entering this body. It's the perfect opportunity to attack!
But that's what they'll be waiting for.
Exactly!
While also trying to take over the world for himself. And I don't know why, I just found that whole concept hilarious, but mainly because of his voice.
That whole episode is hilarious.
Yes. Just as we're going on to characters I'll talk about, they didn't have many characters to start with, and this was because of the CGI being in its infancy. So they couldn't really make all 20 characters from the toy line with alternate animal modes, and they blew most of their budget on the characters, which is why if you notice in the first season the background's really empty. Hasbro weren't really happy about that. However, I think it was an advantage because the limited amount of characters meant they could develop the characters and personalities more, but they found a way around the lack of characters because basically in the very first episode, the Maximals, they eject loads of protoforms into space that will sometimes in future episodes come down and land on the planet, and basically what would happen is the Maximals or Predacons would race to them because the Predacons could reprogram it into a Predacon. So what would happen is when that Mainframe, who are making the show, had time in the schedule to make a new character, they would send the protoform down in the show and introduce a new character. And Hasbro actually really liked this idea. Because it meant when they had a new toy to promote, they could just send down a protoform and a new toy would come out.
Yeah. Okay, this isn't really a spoiler, but for a certain character, did they ever make a toy out of Transmutate?
They did, but I think that was in I think it was I think 10 years later they did a 10-year anniversary Beast Wars toy line, and each figure in that line had a bit of Transmutate. So if you had got all 6 figures, you had a Transmutate.
Oh wow! Okay.
So it's like a treasure hunt kind of thing.
We should explain to the audience that Transmutate is this really weird robot that appears in one episode that I immediately fell in love with.
It's basically a deformed transformer.
Yeah,
it's like a weird demon doll baby. It has no place being in a Transformers show, but here it is, and it's wonderful.
We'll get onto that when we discuss the episodes themselves. But who are your favourite characters to start with? My favourite character in the show is Dinobot, basically because he has a really cool arc. So Dinobot starts the show off as a Predacon, but he quickly defects as he believes that Megatron has led them to the wrong planet.
Yeah.
Because basically he thought they were going to Earth, but the planet they're on has 2 moons, so it can't be Earth. So he basically, after he fails to take command of the Predacons, he runs along, tries to take command of the Maximals, challenging Optimus Primal to a fight to the death with the victor assuming command of the Maximals. While he ends up losing battle, Optimus spares him and Dinobot admires his honour, and because of that he ends up joining the Maximals side. And I'm getting spoilers later, but in the second season, which is the best season, he has like this whole crisis about his place in the Beast Wars, and it ends in a really poignant way, and it's so good.
Yeah, there's a lot of great stuff about self-identity in the show and what it means to be, in this case, the Predacons and the Maximals, and the kind of fluidity between those two groups. Like, you know, they aren't, the good guys aren't always good, the bad guys aren't always bad, kind of thing.
Yeah, and it's also, when you're watching a show, sometimes you forget you're watching a show that was made to sell toys.
Oh, yeah. That's the hilarious thing.
100%.
Is that it actually goes into quite cool sci-fi stuff. This isn't really. I mentioned to Rob that a lot of it is like 2001 Space Odyssey. And there's some really weird esoteric sci-fi in the show that I was really surprised by. Also, I should mention with Dinobot has a wonderful, deep, evil voice, and it's great to the voice actor, Scott McNeil, he voiced like 3 other characters on the show, because he also voiced Rat Trap, Silverbolt, and Waspinator. And here's a funny story of how he ends up getting the role. So, as you both know, Reboot had an X-Files parody episode. They got Gillian Anderson, but they didn't get David Duchovny. So they got this guy, Scott McNeil, to do a really cruel parody of David Duchovny's character in the X-Files. And then I think he auditioned for Beast Wars after that, and he went into a meeting with the Hasbro guys, and I think after the meeting they were just like, so we see on your CV you worked on the Reboot show, did you not? Can you tell us who played the Vax Modem character? And he was like, oh, that was me. Then suddenly these Hasbro guys were like, oh my god, that was you! Oh, that was the best thing ever! And then the next thing he knows, he's got like 3 or 4 characters booked on Beast Wars. That's great. It's also hilarious because Rat Trap and Dinobot, literally every episode they're together, they are always arguing. So I'm just imagining him arguing himself in the recording studio, and that's hilarious to me. Also, Rat Trap has a kind of like New York, was it like a New Yorker accent?
Yeah.
Like,
he does, doesn't he?
Complete polar opposite of Dinobot, who has the more kind of gravelly.
And Silverbolt is another one of my favourite characters, just because I feel he's the character who's probably most like myself, because he's well-meaning, he tries to see the best in everyone. Yeah. He's got a very like noble, Superman-ish kind of like. He's
a chivalrous old knight of yore. It's wonderful.
And of course he voices Waspinator as well, which has the kind of Waspinator.
I was just about to say, if I was a character in this universe, I'd be Waspinator. Do you know why? Because he's constantly falling apart.
Waspinator has a headache in his whole body.
See, it's interesting, Rob, that your favorite character is Dinobot, because I think my favorite character ended up being Black Arachnia.
Oh, she's one of my favorites as well.
Yeah.
Yes.
Black Arachnia kind of comes in. She's a little bit later. She's one of those protoforms that turns up later on, right?
Yeah, season 1. Yeah,
she turns up a little later on, and she was supposed to be a Maximal. but the Predacons capture her first, and she becomes a Predacon instead. And the idea is that, you know, if they get to you at your kind of pre-birth state, you know, you join one side or the other. Black Arachnia, I mean, first off, she's the only woman basically in the whole show, and she has to stand up on her own.
I mean, there is Air Razor as well, but she's barely in it.
There is Air Razor, but yeah, without spoilers, she's barely in the show. So poor Black Arachnia, she's like got all of these horn dog transformers all like going after her at one point or another.
But
I'm talking about you, Cheetah.
But she is also one of the most important characters in the whole show. In her impact
she
is
is,
massive.
yeah.
So we'll talk about that later when we get to the spoilers territory.
And another favourite of mine is Tarantulas.
Yes.
He's a Predacon, but rather than working alongside Predacon, he's working on his own agenda.
He goes and finds his own cave.
And I like it. And they made the show so much more interesting than a simple case of good guys and bad guys fighting every episode.
Yeah.
That's the thing.
Oh, the bad guys fight each other as much as they fight the Maximals. It's great.
But that's the thing. Like, you know, I was watching the original Transformers from the 1980s, and even in the theme tune, it's like, oh, the Decepticons are evil and the Autobots are good, you know. And whereas in Beast Wars, I think they kind of turn it over its head and basically say, look, there's moral ambiguity between both sides. You know, people are at odds with, like, you know, family, as it were, like a family of Predacons or Maximals.
Yeah. And also, because another thing is, about I think halfway through the second season, you find out what the Maximals were doing before they were sent after Megatron, and it's kind of really, really messed up that they were trying to do that, because it's like, it's a bit of a grey area there. Without getting spoilers.
But I like the just character development. It allows. This is a bit more mature in the sense that, like, there's redemption and growth between characters, which wasn't present in the original show. I didn't think as much.
It's interesting. There seems to be a kind of ideological division between the Predacons and the Maximals, which I really like. The Maximals have a better sense of duty and honor and things like that. Whereas one of the hilarious things with the Predacons is that they are so selfish and so self-centered that they spend most of their time trying to take down their own leader, Megatron. Like almost every episode has some detail where, like, Black Arachnia or Tarantulas, or even like Pterosaur, like even the lesser Predacons like Pterosaur, at one point or another betray Megatron. You know.
And that's another interesting point, because one of the things I like about the premise of the show is it's not just the leader of the good guys versus the leader of the bad guys, because Megatron and his posse of Predacons, they're actually rogue Predacons. They've gone rogue, and Optimus Primal's ship was it was just the closest ship in range. That's why they were sent after them. Because even like in the first episode, when they're going after them, Ratchet's like, "Hey, we're an exploration ship, not a battle cruiser."
Yeah.
Oh, the opening sequence is a massive parody of Star Wars, by the way. I love it.
Oh yeah, it's great.
It's even got the battle cruiser. Like, I'm gonna edit like a comparison between the two scenes because it looks so funny. But like,
that's great.
Yeah, it was a very good show. One thing I wanted to bring up, actually, you know how this show suddenly brings animals into Transformers. It's kind of like a bit spontaneous and out there, as it were. I do actually think during this period, there was a bit of a craze going on for animals, like in children's entertainment in particular. And I think, looking at it, it might have been like to do with Jurassic Park and stuff like that, which came out, I think Jurassic Park came out 3 years before Beast Wars, I want to say.
I think what happened was, I think the Transformers toy line at the time was dying. Like I think they did a show called Generation 2, which was basically the original cartoon, but with like a CGI opening sequence and like transitioning shots of a cube.
Yeah.
And yeah, obviously that didn't catch on very well, so they kind of like needed something new to reinvigorate the brand. So they passed the thing on to Kenner, who was a brand they acquired, and funny enough, Kenner was the guys who made the original Star Wars figures. Yeah. And they just came up with this idea and they designed all the toys.
It's the thing, like, I remember when I was younger, like during the 90s, like the late 90s and like, you know, throughout the 2000s, there was a lot of entertainment that actually deployed animals where you wouldn't think it would be necessary. Like, for instance, there was a Power Rangers show where they did that as well. I think it was called Power Rangers Wild Force or something like that.
Oh, yes, Power Rangers Wild Force.
Yeah. And then you see there was a lot of collectible cards going on that was like very animal centric, you know.
There was also stuff like Street Sharks and Extreme Dinosaurs
we said about
Biker Mice from Mars and stuff like that.
Yeah, and Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, of course.
I mean, that was an 80s thing, but it did cross over into the 90s.
Yeah.
And Animorphs as well.
Animals?
Animorphs, yeah.
I've heard of that.
It was a series of books where like kids could transform into animals.
And funny enough, they made a TV show of
they did.
And I think the toy line was made by Hasbro, and they released it under, I think, either the Beast Wars or Beast Machines name as a sub-brand.
Okay, yeah.
Like even, you know, Godzilla, the Godzilla movie of that time, there was like...
Oh, yeah.
They made it very much more... They made it more like a dinosaur than like a atomic monster.
I mean, that movie was just a complete rip-off of Jurassic Park.
Exactly, but that's what I mean. It was.
It's born an animated series, though, which is apparently quite good and actually better than the movie it's based on.
Oh yeah, I've watched it. It's very, very good, actually.
That's another thing. Speaking of dinosaurs, one thing I really like with the difference between the Maximals and the Predacons is the Maximals kind of turned into, when they first arrived, like both ships scanned the outlying area, and the Maximals took on the forms of like real life animals that were alive and existed, whereas the Predacons analyzed the old fossils of dinosaurs. So you have this really cool distinction between the two, where you've got like Megatron is a Tyrannosaurus Rex, and Maximus Primal is a gorilla, you know, and Rat Trap is a rat, Cheetah is a cheetah. And Dinobot is a raptor, you know, and so I love that. Basically, it's animals versus dinosaurs, which is such a wonderful like kiddie concept.
Oh yeah,
but done really well. Done better than it had any right to be done as well.
Well, that sums up every show that we'll ever talk about. Is it was done? It was a lot better than it had any right to be. which is great. Like it makes for good entertainment even today. When you know. One
thing I forgot to say actually, I know he kind of moved away from Rat Trap when we were talking about him, but can I just say, I want it on record, his transformation terrifies the living daylights out of me.
Rat Trap maximized.
Genuinely, like his head bends inwards, and he's like
Oh yeah, like their heads like twist around sometimes,
and then it's like in their arms. It's like
they can be very disconcerting, especially in the first season when the animation wasn't quite there.
Yeah, but to be fair, I think when we were growing up, like the animation was kind of like in its infancy, because we had obviously we had Toy Story. We also had Reboot, which was the first full-length CGI show. And they basically got Beast Wars off the back of Reboot, because I think Reboot was moderately successful at the time. So Hasbro went to Mainframe and like, can you make a show about our toys?
Yeah.
It was kind of like a work-for-hire gig, but the Mainframe still collaborated with the guys from Hasbro, so it wasn't just like them just animating their scripts.
I grew up, like when we were growing up and stuff like that, we had access to a lot of like CGI through video games. I think, as well as things like Toy Story and like cinematic films like that, my early CGI experiences were from video game cutscenes, and a lot of mainframe animation reminds me of PlayStation 1 cutscenes.
It looks like PlayStation cutscenes.
Definitely. There's a
like when I was watching the show, we got to like season 2 and 3. I was amazed at how good the animation was. I was looking at season 3, and I was like, "Oh my god, that water looks really good!" And the way they've made that shot, like the sunset, looks really good. I was like amazed that it was only from like 1998.
I want to say it was in season 3 of Beast Wars, there comes a point when you can tell they were really proud of their water physics because you see them like constantly. It's like, look at us. We've been able to animate water that looks, fairly decent.
But there's a thing that there's a rustiness to like old CGI that's so charming. I don't know what it is. It's like it's always
I'm the same. Like I'm not. It's a barrier for some people, but I find it charming depending on where it was on, because around the same time as this show we had the Donkey Kong Country cartoon, which looks like absolute shit. And even then I'd rather watch something like Beast Wars than like stuff like Minions, which looks just very like generic, and it's just like the story isn't there. It's just
yeah.
Okay, I feel like, should we go on to spoilers at this point?
All right,
are we ready to
I'll let it in like a bloopy noise or something to indicate spoilers.
Spoilers.
Yeah, audiences listening in, if you care about spoilers for a show that came out in 1996, stop here and go watch the show and come back, and you can hear the rest of our thoughts on it.
It's a brilliant show.
It's really fun. Like, as someone who actually sat down to watch it like a month ago, I am now a fan. So that says a lot, because I'm very discerning on the stuff that I enjoyed. So okay, go check it out. But yeah, spoilers. What are the spoilers? What do we want to talk about?
Okay, so let's start with season 1. So for the most part, season 1's very episodic, which involves most episodes are involving Maximals and Predacons fighting over a MacGuffin that could give either side a tactical advantage. However, in the second episode, like the first opening two-parter, they kind of establish there's Stonehenge, and Rhinox is like, oh, someone's been here before us. Then there's all these hints throughout the first season of this mysterious alien race.
Oh, my favorite episode of season 1, I think, was, I have the list of all the names here, so I want to see if I can remember this. The Trigger, part 1 and part 2. Where Black Arachnia takes control of a weird alien obelisk that pops up, and that's is that our first introduction to there being weird alien technology on the planet, I think. Not just hints of aliens, but actually a giant weapon that they try to use.
Yeah, and then I think near the end of the season, you find that Optimus Primal tries to communicate with the aliens, and they're basically you've plunged this planet into war, our experiment is ruined, we're now going to blow up your planet. And it turns out one of the moons is a space laser, so basically...
That's no moon.
Yeah, so the plot twist to season 1 is to quote that wonderful song from the Planet of the Apes musical from The Simpsons, "It was Earth all along."
Yeah. You finally made Optimus a monkey out of me. Sorry, that was terrible. Leave it in. It's fine. Yeah. You finally made Optimus a monkey.
So how they decide to deal with this weapon is Optimus decides to fly a protoform into the Death Star, as it were, to blow it up. And he's going to eject at the last minute. However, Megatron seals him in. So the first season ends on a cliffhanger where it seems like Optimus Primal is dead.
No! But it's okay. He comes back.
He comes back with a robot skateboard.
Yeah. Yeah, they introduce a new concept. Basically, the alien moon thing explodes and causes a weird shockwave that transforms the Transformers so that they actually develop a new kind of appearance, which they call the transmetal forms.
Yes.
So Cheetah and Rat-Trap have new character designs basically for season 2, as does Megatron and
Optimus Primal,
and then Optimus.
And Tarantulas as well, he gets a transmetal form.
Yes, so it becomes this kind of big thing to become a transmetal Predacon or Maximal.
Next 2 episodes, we are introduced to another concept. It's not really fleshed out that much, but the Fusors, who are Transformers who are a mix of two different animals. So one of those is Silverbolt, who is a mix of a kind of like a wolf and an eagle. And then we've got Quickstrike, who is a mix of a scorpion with a rattlesnake tail.
Yes, which is great.
When they awaken, Megatron convinces the two that they're Predacons, and while Quickstrike embraces his Predacon nature, Silverbolt...
He's a cowboy, by the way. It's great.
Silverbolt, it doesn't sit right with him being a Predacon, so he ends up defecting by the end of the two-parter. I think I like it. He defeats Megatron and he goes to Optimus, "Can I join you?" And Optimus is like, "I like your resume."
That episode is really fun because they kind of have like a weird Western vibe to it. Where they're all doing the good, the bad, the ugly, stare at each other. It's really cute.
And also this season creates a lot of stuff with Dinobots, which is where the stuff I love about Dinobot comes in, because he realised, because if you remember at the start of season 1, the reason he defected was he thought Megatron led them to the wrong planet because he thought they were going to Earth. But now he finds out it was Earth all along, and he has a big crisis of conscience about it. So he ends up stealing Megatron's golden disc that he stole from Cybertron, and he finds out he's about to die, and he has this really big dilemma about that. So he even ends up rejoining Megatron for an episode because of this.
We should mention quickly that the golden disc is a bit of a MacGuffin thing that allows you to see the future. That Megatron had stolen from Cybertron. And also Cybertron is the planet that they're all from. I should also mention. Is it a space station or is it a planet?
It's a planet.
Okay, it is a planet. Great.
Okay, so the lead up to all this is an episode called Code of Hero, which is my absolute favorite episode of the show. It's basically Dinobot has come to like a big turning point. Like Megatron has decided to use the disc power to change the future. And because humans resulted in the Autobots' victory in what's called the Great War, he's going to wipe out loads of cavemen and prevent humans from ever existing. So what the Dinobot, this does not sit right with him. So he decides to sacrifice his life for these humans. He has like this big battle. He single-handedly takes on like all the Predacons, and he ends up making like a makeshift like bone axe, which he used to fight Megatron, which is found by a caveman. This is the 2001 Space Odyssey connection. A caveman is inspired to use a club by an alien, which I just thought was fun.
The whole scene is hilarious. Sorry. And
also, the start of the episode as well, Dinobot is contemplating suicide in a children's show.
Oh my god, this show's amazing.
At the very end of the episode, Dinobot ends up giving his life to save the future of humanity. And it's like really poignant end to his character. It's just really well done. Like, poor Rattrap is like, remember, they've been arguing like the entire show.
He's regretting it, isn't he?
And Rattrap was he was very, very he took it really hard when Dinobot became a Predacon again. And but he was so like heartbroken about his death. And they were actually going to cover that in a season 3 episode that got thrown out, which is sad because I would have liked to have seen that.
It's funny, but I was actually kind of shocked. Do you know what I mean? Because it was such a sad death that what Dinobot went through. I remember watching it. I was watching it late one night. I was cuddling my cat as well. But like when it happened, I was just messaging the whole group, just going like, "What? This is a kids show. What, is he dead? Is he going to come back?" Like I was just like shocked. No. And now he doesn't come back.
His funeral and everything.
It's not like.
And then the next episode, it followed up with another really, really well done, emotional, sad episode, which was Transmutate.
This is my favorite.
That is devastating.
Episode.
That's a tragic episode.
Yeah, so Transmutate is this weird, creepy-looking baby alien robot thing that looks like something that came straight out of Courage the Cowardly Dog. And the two sides kind of like fight over it, and it's kind of
it's Silverbolt who wants to help him, and Rampage, who we've not talked about yet, who views him as kind of like a kindred spirit.
Yes, Rampage is a unique transformer because he's kind of like a weird experimental creation, isn't he?
We'll go back and talk about that episode. So before Code of Hero, an episode called Bad Spark, we find out before the Maximals were sent to intercept Megatron, the Maximals they tried to make an indestructible, a spark, like a Transformer soul that could not be destroyed, but the result was an insane beast, which they called Protoform X.
Who commits genocide.
So what they were going to do, so before they were sent to go after Megatron, they were just going to dispose of his protoform and abandon the planet. So his stasis pod ended up crashing on Earth, and the Predacons find it. And he waits and he goes on like a massive killing spree, and like the way that episode is done feels like a kind of a slasher film. It's got that kind of vibe.
Yeah, it's scary. It's like it's a really messed up episode. And like I said, his backstory is like he killed everyone in like the planet he was from, and it's just like, oh yeah, this is a kid's show.
Oh god.
Yeah, but back to Transmutate is like at the very end of the episode as well. Transmutate is he just wants I think it's a she actually. She wants both sides to stop fighting, and in doing so, she sacrifices her life.
I'm going to go out on a limb and say that whatever Transmutate is, it's probably genderless. It's very much like a strange, like otherworldly creature at this point. But yeah, it's great. I love Transmutate. And I remember at the end, I think they decided just to leave Rampage be because Rampage is genuinely upset when Transmutate dies. And like Silverbot really sympathises with that as well because Silverbot really wanted to help Transmutate. Yeah, because the other side, because the Maximals are all like, oh, she's Transmutate is a menace. And Megatron's like, because Transmutate can't transform, Megatron just deems them as useless and just tosses them aside. Yeah, I kind of wish that they'd gone a bit more into Rampage's story. It's a shame because he kind of just remains one of Megatron's henchmen when they kind of established that he was a bit more than that. I know they come up with a whole thing, he's being controlled by Megatron with this thing that comes later, but it's just, yeah, it would have been really cool if he'd maybe not so much defected to the Maximals, but maybe had his own kind of had more of a Tarantulas. Yeah,
I think that was a season 3 thing because the season 3 was a lot different from season 2.
Yeah, season 3 seemed to struggle to find its feet, whereas season 2 was very strong from beginning to end. They had more of an idea of what they were doing. Yeah, especially those last 3 episodes. I mean, Code of Hero is my favourite. The Agenda 3-parter is probably like it's just such an ambitious thing because it's the episode that has the most explicit ties to the original Transformers. Yeah, and we find out why Megatron was he wanted to come to Earth to begin with. Well, it was to destroy the original Optimus Prime, wasn't it?
Yeah. So what this thing was on the golden disc that he took from Cybertron. Megatron found there were instructions from the original Megatron, which he tells to so basically the Predacons send one of their agents to capture Megatron because they are worried that if the Maximals and Cybertron find out about all this, it could start the war over again. The Predacons are really just biding their time. They don't want to jump into the war straight away. Yeah. So, Ravage is actually a character from the original Transformers. He was actually originally a Decepticon. He was a cassette tape that came out of the character Soundwave.
Yes. Soundwave is amazing, by the way. Great Transformer.
Yeah. Ravage, he initially comes to catch Megatron. As soon as he finds out that Megatron is following instructions from his ancestor, Rampage instantly, because he was working with the Maximals to capture Megatron beforehand, he's instantly switches sides and he's like, long live the Decepticons.
The Agenda episodes, I think they're called the Agenda, is it the 3-parter?
Yeah. Agenda part 1 to 3.
that whole storyline is on par with like Infinity War. Like it felt like the whole time travel shenanigan that's pulled out at the end by Megatron is like a Thanos snap almost. It's undoing an established universe of characters.
Unleash the storm of vengeance! Farewell!
Yeah, well, that's what he's trying to do. Is he's trying to erase the Autobots from ever existing, or at least existing in the way that they do in the War of 1984, I think it's called. And the events of the original Transformers.
So basically, to catch everyone up to speed, at the start of the original Transformers, the Transformers, they all crash on prehistoric Earth, and they're in cryosleep until the year 1984.
Yeah.
And because the Beast War Transformers, they've been sent back in time, they find the Ark, which is the ship the Transformers are all on. And Megatron, he finds the sleeping body of Optimus Prime.
That blew my mind.
Off.
Yeah.
And he blows his head up.
At that point, I kind of, I was saying earlier that, maybe Beast Wars could be its own thing and separate from Transformers. At that point, I was kind of like, no, I know why they've connected this to Transformers. This is brilliant. This is good storytelling. Really yeah.
And then it's Black Arachnia who saves the day at the beginning of season 3.
That's actually one of my favourites because Black Arachnia is being erased from existence as well because she started out as a Maximal Protoform. Yes. So she saves Optimus Prime from dying, and Optimus Prime takes care of his spark for a while.
So he turns into a mix of himself and the original Optimus Prime. So he's got all the Optimal Optimus.
Yeah,
I love these names. They're amazing.
Okay, so now we've discussed. I want to quickly go on to Gmtv, who were the channel who showed Beast Wars.
What's the story with Gmtv?
So basically, Beast Wars started in the US and Canada in 1996. Gmtv didn't start airing it until 1998, and even then, they only aired it on bank holiday weekends and October half terms. Okay, episodes were they cut the episodes in half with a 5-minute advert break. And then it wasn't just a 5-minute advert break, because after the advert break and in between the second half of Beast Wars, you had a 5-minute skit with 90s fit TV host and fitness coach, Mr. Motivator. They also needlessly censored episodes, and they skipped over half of the first season. And in between the two-parter in season 2, Other Visits, there was a 3-month gap between part 1 and 2. And then they just stopped it after season 2. So the only way you could see season 3 is if you got Beast Wars on VHS. But the episode that resolved the agenda cliffhanger, which is Optimal Situation, was only available on a video that was available exclusively at Toys R Us if you spent £10 or more on Beast Wars toys.
No. That's mad.
And it wasn't until 2003 when Channel 5 showed it that they showed Beast Wars all the way through.
We're so used to being able to access everything. Imagine being a 9-year-old watching Beast Wars or trying to watch Beast Wars in the UK.
And having to watch every half term or bank holiday for episode. We'll get on to more of ITV treatment shows. Because Reboot and also the new CGI Captain Scarlet, they also were treated awfully by ITV. But I think Beast Wars probably treated the worst, because at least those shows kind of got semi-regular slots, as Beast Wars was only shown exclusively on bank holidays.
Yeah.
I don't think many people here even really know about Beast Wars, and I get the feeling there's more of a chance of kids our generation knowing about Beast Wars from getting the toy than actually watching the show. I get the feeling that might actually have been the case.
Yeah.
Where a lot of kids will have had a Cheetah toy and they won't have actually known that there was an entire TV show built around it.
Because by the time they showed it all in 2003, they weren't making the toys anymore. I think Hasbro were doing other Transformers stuff. So
sure. The turnaround on these things is so quick. They just move from one new show to the next.
Ewan, you made an interesting point, about how difficult it must have been for a kid in the 90s you speak a good lot of truth there, because when I was a kid, I actually had a difficulty accessing certain TV shows that I wanted to watch as well. Namely Digimon. I wanted to watch Digimon.
Okay.
Oh yes, that's another one. CITV. I've heard CITV kept cutting that show off mid-season.
Yeah, not just that, but they didn't release all of the episodes on VHS, and like I think it got up to the bit where they met the only human in the Digimon world, and then after that you couldn't really see what happened to the children after that, and what happened to the Digimon. Basically, the story ended for me there when I was like 10 or whatever, and then I never found out what happened next.
This is really sad, but my example of that is the Jackie Chan TV show.
Oh no!
So you know how at the end of like every Jackie Chan episode they would put like a weird token into that dragon wall thing?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I was watching that like diligently. I watched like almost every episode. I remembered it so well. And then like getting to the point when they was like one token away from whatever it was he was supposed to like transform into as like the dragon wall thing. I didn't get to see that episode.
No, wait, oh my god, I saw that. There was like the ultimate final where they get all the talismans together and it comes to life. I saw that on TV too, and I never saw the second part.
Yeah, there you go. I never got to see it. Like
my example of this is, of course, Reboot, which we'll discuss in the Reboot episode.
Yeah.
Well, Reboot had its own horrible fate that we'll get into in that episode. But Reboot had its own problems in both circulation and just the way that it was eventually made. But yeah, anyway, back to Beast Wars.
So yes, season 3. One of my favourite things about season 3 is they introduced a character called Death Charge, who's a really cool kind of like lone wolf kind of character. So you mentioned what's his name? Rampage committed genocide.
Yeah.
Depth Charge. He was part of the. It was like his planet that he committed genocide on, or like his group.
Yeah.
And he's hunting down Depth Charge for revenge. So he's reluctant to work with the other Maximals because he just wants to go after Rampage.
Yeah. No, it is cool. Depth Charge is like a stingray. It's like, or mixing up words again, but yeah, he's like a stingray. It's very cool.
Yeah, and one of the problems I have with season 3 is the stories aren't, and also a lot of the action is kind of more slapstick.
Yeah, it kind of loses, like I said, it kind of loses its footing. That they weren't really sure. Weirdly enough, apart from Black Arachnia, they weren't really sure what to do with all the other characters. At least with her, you kind of had a sense of where they were going with her. But they really, like Cheetah, I guess, gets a new new look.
He has a weird puberty arc, and they bring back they clone Dinobots as a Predacon.
It's all like fine, but it's not as dynamic as what happened in season 2.
I think at least Hasbro told the showrunners, okay, this is the last season, so they were able to wrap it up in a somewhat satisfactory way, because I think with some of the mainframe shows, they've ended up on an unintentional cliffhanger.
It's satisfying. I was a little disappointed that there's this whole thing with the aliens in the first 2 seasons. Like we kind of talked about how there's all this alien technology, and eventually the aliens try to destroy them with the giant Death Star moon thing. And there's a bit more about the aliens in season 2, but it's kind of building up. It's going to be this big thing that the aliens are going to be the big antagonists, and it doesn't really happen that way in the last couple of episodes of season 3. Like it's the catalyst for like when the aliens come back. It is the reason why the last few episodes happen the way they do. I just kind of wish that they did a bit more with them, and because they were a really cool, weird, like I said, 2001 Space Odyssey kind of dynamic where like these weird aliens turn up and kind of wreck everything, and neither the Predacons or the Maximals are really able to take them on. They're kind of their own force, but then they're just like, oh no, we just dispatched them really quickly. Oh, okay.
I think the problem with season 3 as well is Hasbro was still figuring out the toy line when they're making it. So they had Optimal Optimus, which is Optimus's like ultimate form. Yeah. But they couldn't really do much with him because he'd just overpower everyone while they were figuring out what they were going to do with Megatron's toy, which is why at the very end of the show, like Megatron becomes a dragon, and there's like there's only like 5 episodes left. And so Tigerhawk's brought in for like the last 3 episodes because they weren't sure if they were going to release the toy.
Yeah.
It's like the clone Dinobot thing as well. It's kind of like, Dinobot's arc went down really well in season 2. Let's capitalize on this and make a new Dinobot toy.
Well, that was fine. I didn't actually mind that too much because we got to have a bit more Dinobot content, but it would have been nice again if they'd done more with that. Especially if they did that abandoned episode that was scrapped because Hasbro thought it was too dark and didn't have enough action, which was going to involve Ratchet trying to implant Dinobots' memories into a new body. I did really like the episode where Dinobot and Black Arachnia are chasing after each other. I'm not even sure like if anything happens in that episode. I just thought it was a very cool
I think that was the one where they're talking about turning Black Arachnia into a Maximal, and she doesn't want to become Maximal, so she runs away.
That's why I liked it. There was again that crisis of identity thing I mentioned, where I really like the fact that Black Arachnia is just kind of like, no, actually, I'm fine. I'm happy with who I am. I don't need to like change my programming and myself to fit into your group, basically. Like she kind of goes by her own rules, and I like that. I like all that stuff. And I guess pairing her up with Dinobot in that episode, I think, was a cool way of like highlighting the fact that Dinobot had his own kind of conflicts. Even if he was like, it was the clone Dinobot, it wasn't the original Dinobot, but it was still kind of a cool like mirroring of the 2 characters, which I enjoyed. So yeah, that's a good episode. I like that one.
And of course, the wonderful thing about the ending, which James is very happy, is Waspinator gets a happy ending.
Yes, it's amazing. Oh my god! Like, so Waspinator has a hard time just throughout the whole thing, and towards the end, actually, I mean, it goes back to what you're saying about like changing loyalties and stuff like that, and identity crisis or whatever. By the end, he actually just Waspinator renounces like his loyalty to the Predacons. He's just like, I've had enough being blown up and stuff like that. and then immediately he gets blown up again. But in the final scene of the whole series, before the end credits, just to conclude everything, you see him being like worshipped and like all back together, just like on the corpses of the other Predacons, just like, yep, this is the life. And I was like, yeah. And then Beast Machines, the sequel series, kind of ruins that a bit. Oh no, I haven't seen it, but oh no.
We haven't watched Beast Machines yet.
Yeah, I've only seen the first season. I watched it immediately after I first saw Beast Wars, and it was just so different that I couldn't really get into it. It had cool ideas. Like I liked that like every episode was a continuing story. So like episodes 1 to 26 was a complete story. I liked it. It had like a nature versus technology thing, but instead of doing the generic nature good, technology bad thing, they did it in a way that was like you need a balance of both. But I just couldn't get on board with it. I didn't really like the character designs. They changed the way some of the characters, like Silverbolt, who's like in Beast, was this like really chivalrous character. He's basically like an emo edgelord in Beast Machines.
Oh no!
And then Megatron, who's like really like a fun-loving villain, is now this overly serious villain. And it's
we need to go in quickly about Megatron. Sorry, just for a quick second.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, I mean, I've said all I can about Beast Machines anyway.
Megatron in Beast Wars is delightful. He kind of goes into our thing that we said about Aku last time, where the man has flair. He sits in a bath a lot, I noticed, like especially in the last one. Yeah, with a rubber duck at one point. And his whole thing is
he's putting on a trial, and he's got like a judge's wig and a mallet.
Yes. He's like judging Quick Strike for like, you betrayed us and now you will face the consequences. And it's like, and the defense is Waspinator, who's like, yes, you betrayed Megatron, and it is bad that you did that, so the defense finds you guilty. And it's like, you were defending him. It's great. But Megatron, ultimately, we love him because of the way that he says, anyone else want to say it?
Yes. Another thing I wanted to say about, I know I keep bringing up Waspinator, he's my favourite character, but like, he is the Starscream of Beast Wars, to be honest. And I think, I think they actually make a point of that when Starscream actually possesses his body. So it's interesting that like Beast Wars does try to be its own version of Transformers. Do you know what I mean? It's its own iteration, its own identity. It's not a repeat. I appreciate the fact that they didn't basically reboot it, because Transformers is rebooted all the time, is my understanding. Like
that's the thing with Beast Machines. That is the last series in the original Transformers canon, because every series after has kind of been its own thing. Although apparently in Japan, like every Transformers series takes place in one timeline, which I don't really understand.
But they're like the same characters. It probably doesn't make much
sense. There's Beast Wars anime as well.
Yeah, I was going to say.
Because I think because the show took so long to make with like all the CGI, in between like seasons, like dubbing, like the Beast Wars dub in Japan was very different. Like it was more kind of like comical, and had like bits where Ratchet would break the fourth wall and try and sniff what the audience was having for dinner.
Wow.
So they did kind of like an anime in between seasons, which was it's very different. I've not watched it. I don't think it was ever brought over here. It was never like dubbed or anything, but it was kind of like the more comical kind of thing, like the double, bit more under double of Beast Wars in Japan.
I want to say that Beast Wars is like a really big thing over there, like in Japan. Like I know Transformers is big in Japan as well, but yeah, I want to say that Beast Wars was really popular. I might be making that up, but
I think you're right. I think you're right, because they have like more Beast Wars TV shows and films and stuff than we do, I think.
Yeah, which is amazing when you think that it was made by some Canadian company. But I guess the Transformers like connection kind of was interesting to the Japanese, but it's like,
I'm going to go on a quick tangent. We're going to talk about Transformers comics. We're going to swing it back to Beast Wars, but okay. So when the Transformers comics came out at the same time as the TV show, but they were two separate entities. So they had two different continuities. There's comic continuity and cartoon continuity. And funny enough, the comics are published by Marvel and originally took place in the mainstream Marvel universe. So, for example, in the third issue, Spider-Man just shows up.
Brilliant.
Yeah, and I'm going to bring up a particular character called Death's Head. The story behind Death's Head is the UK Transformers comics were weekly rather than monthly. So the UK staff had to come up with their own stories in between the US, fit in between the stories from America. And so a lot of the stories ended up bringing things into Transformers lore, like the Transformers like God Primus. But Death's Head, he was like a robot bounty hunter that was created for a Transformers story. But the creator of the story thought this character had more potential, so they did a one-page strip for him that they put in other Marvel comics. So Marvel got the copyright rather than Hasbro. So basically, Death's Head's deal is he's a robot bounty hunter who was hired by both the Autobots and the Decepticons to kill each other. Eventually, he gets blown through time and space, where he meets none other than the Doctor from Doctor Who. Specifically, Sylvester McCoy, who has a device that he got from the Master that shrinks Death's Head to human size, where he was Transformer size before, and he dumps him in the future, where he starts a freelance peacekeeping agency, and eventually he gets hired to kill the Doctor. And the Doctor senses that Death's Head's time machine is about to explode, so the Doctor saves his life and dumps him on top of the Baxter building, which is where the Fantastic Four live, and the character has stayed in the mainstream Marvel universe ever since. Yeah, it's completely mad.
The 90s were fascinating.
This was 80s.
Oh, 80s, okay. Yeah, the 80s were fascinating.
The key architect of the comic in the UK was a guy called Simon Furman, who I think he actually helped out with the series finale of Beast Wars. And in 2006, he wrote some Beast Wars comics, which they're set during the third season of Beast Wars and follow Maximals and Predacons, who are displaced in time from the events of the TV show. So it's happening at the same time, but neither side can interact with each other. So basically, the Tripredacus Council sends an agent named Megatron after Megatron. But Megatron, he has his own agenda. He wants to awaken all the protoforms on Earth and then go back to Cybertron and invade it. However, he's got a sleeper agent called Razorbeast, who is a Maximal, who rigs Megatron's device and awakens the protoforms as Maximals. And like, it's basically got a second Beast Wars kind of going on alongside the TV show. It lasts for like 8 issues, and like the ending leads right into the start of Beast Machines as well.
Amazing.
I wanted to bring up this quickly, if it's all right.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mentioned this to you, chaps. I've sent you a picture of it as well. But I found out as I was watching Beast Wars. I've got 2 kittens, right? Groot. Well, they call Rocket and Groot after the Guardians of the Galaxy. Groot is a beast. He's a Transformers beast. He can turn into a car because he can slide into a little sandal and turn into another being entirely.
I'm just looking at all the toys of Beast Wars. One thing that's really fun with the character designs, which you can really see with the toys, is that a lot of the characters would have like the head of the animal somewhere on their body, and like, so Megatron just has this giant T-Rex head on his arm.
Oh yeah.
I think some of in the first season at least, I think some of the character designs were hit and miss in terms of the accuracy to the toy. But I think as the show got on, like they were able to scan like the character design data straight to like the toy company, so that they could make really show accurate toys, which is what the mainframe did later. And I think when they were doing some like the later reboot toys, like the later reboot toys, they look very, very close to the characters in the show.
I was going to ask what our favorite episodes were.
I've already said my favorite episodes. I love particularly the last 6 episodes of season 2, just because they feel like really like serious, not in like an overly like dark po-faced Zack Snyder kind of like a more mature kind of interesting stories. But my particular favourite to stand out is of course Code of Hero.
Oh, of course, yeah.
Code of Hero.
James, what is your favourite?
I'm going to say the Agenda episodes particularly, because I think that it's a massive undertaking of a storyline, and I think it's going to be important for me in the future because I'm planning to go back to watch the original Transformers fully, and it's going to be quite significant to the storyline of that as well. So, I think it's pretty cool. How about you, Ewan?
Well, of course, my favorite episode is actually Possession, starring Starscream. Starscream return!
I think we need to all agree that Ewan is Starscream, by the way. Like, he's just literally Starscream.
It's me!
It's the same way that I'm Silverbolt, basically.
Yeah, and I'm Ospinate.
Yeah, there we go. No, if I'm like I said, if I'm an actual character, I'd probably be like Black Arachnia or someone. I don't know. I like betraying people occasionally.
Okay, so we have our social media pages on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram is @BloobcastPod. And we also now have an email address, which is bloobcast@outlook.com. So if you want to email us feedback or suggestions for future episodes,
we will only listen to positive feedback. Okay, and Ewan, would you like to introduce what we're going to be talking about on the next episode? Oh, okay. I think I remember what we said our next episode was going to be.
It's the video game about a certain dragon.
There's a little purple dragon, famously known as Spyro, that we will be discussing. I'm assuming we're discussing like the PlayStation 1 games, although we might go into some of the later games as well, including probably the Reignited trilogy.
And possibly ranting about Enter the Dragonfly.
Yes. Well, I want to talk about the New Beginning PlayStation 2 games as well. But yeah, we will be talking about Spyro next time. So tune in next time for that. Okay, until next time, the Bloobcast bids you farewell.
Take care, everyone.
Take care, guys. See y'all.
Goodbye.
Please, don't fire. I was wrong. I shouldn't have done it. Please don't shoot.